Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And welcome. I am Janice Smith, the Administrative Assistant for CASA, Center for Academic Success and Advisement, on this beautiful campus of Francis Marion University. And I have the pleasure today of introducing our speaker. We have Dr. Michelle L. Norman, who is an associate professor and the graduate studies coordinator for the Master of Speech Language Pathology program in the School of Health Sciences at Francis Marion University. She is a fellow of the American Speech Language Hearing Association, who received her PhD from the University of Memphis, MS from the University of the District of Columbia, and BA from Rutgers University Douglas College. Dr. Norman has been a speech language pathologist for over 35 years in a variety of settings. Clinically, she has served populations from birth to senescence, providing services to children and adults with neurologically based disorders that impact speech, language, communication, and swallowing. During her career, she was the coordinator of the Intensive Review for Praxis Examination for Speech Language Pathology for the National Black Association for Speech, Language, and Hearing for 19 years, and a special education teacher in the public school setting for nearly 10 years, serving children with learning disabilities and severe communication deficits. After receiving her doctorate, Dr. Norman became research faculty in communication sciences and disorders at Medical University of South Carolina, where she was also the director of the Communication and Aging Research Lab. Later, she was a tenured associate professor at Longwood University and the Communication Sciences and Disorders undergraduate program coordinator. One of her areas of interest is communication disorders and their relationships to normal and pathological aging across diverse cultures. Today, Dr. L. Norman's title is Cultural Speaking, Communication, Diversity, Differences, and Disorder. Let's give her a hand as she comes forward. Dr. Michelle L. Norman.
Thank you, Janice. Good morning, everyone. I thank you all for coming today. Well, as you all know, those of you who know me know that I am challenged in the height department. So I'm going to do my best not to stand behind the podium and stand where I can see you all and you can see me as well. So I was asked just to give a little bit of information about the letters behind my name and what they mean. And so the C's behind my name stands for clinically competent, certified clinically competent speech language pathologist. And we have to hold that certificate in order to practice anywhere. And if I was an audiologist, it would have an A behind the C's. And then ASHA Fellow, the fellowship of ASHA is our governing body, and being a fellow is the second highest rank that you could possibly be awarded in our profession. And so I thank you all again for coming. Just to let you know my disclosures, of course, you know I work here. I also own a private practice, and I am a member of ASHA as well as NBASLA, the National Black Association for Speech, Language, and Hearing. So just a little bit about me and who I am. Well, I'm a city girl. I was born in Newark, New Jersey. But many of you are probably like, you do not sound like you are from New Jersey. And that's because I'm a good speech pathologist. I work on that really hard. But I have country roots. These are my parents. My mother was born here in Bishopville, South Carolina, and my dad was born in Waynesboro, Georgia. And although they met in the city and we were born and lived in the city, I promise you, I am a country girl at heart. Living in South Carolina is no small feat to me because I came here every summer of my life and was actually in the countryside. I grew up calling it Elliot because that's all I knew. But I learned as an adult when I got to read, I was like, oh, it's Elliot? Oh, that's where you're from. But if you know anything about the area, we're talking rural. My great-grandmother, who we stayed with, had an outhouse and no indoor running water. So I know how to prime a pump and how to take a pot out in the night. So I've got a lot of skills. I've got a lot of skills, not just that PhD. I am a Title I success story because I was a product of Head Start. I also was a product of the Upward Bound program. For those of you who don't know what those are programs that were set in place shortly after the civil rights movement to help underrepresented populations to have a leg up. And so I'm one of those persons who was able to do that all the way until the PhD. So a little bit about what I do, and I say that because, people think they know speech pathology, but they're like, yeah, I really don't know what you do. What, you help people talk? Yeah, we do. But there's a lot more to it. I am actually a medical speech pathologist, but I've had experiences working in the school setting as well. So these are all the different settings that we can work in and the different types of services that we can provide. And I am happy to say that over my past 35, that's the number I'm stopping with, years of experience, I've worked in every setting with the exception of day rehab and travel therapy. That's mostly because travel therapy has really been this new thing that's really happened over the most recent years. And day rehab, there was only one in my area, and the SLP that had that job was not giving it up. So I didn't have that experience. But I have also had the opportunity to do the various services that you see as well. But speech itself is more than just talk. As you heard, I've worked with newborns all the way to persons who are in hospice care. I have worked with people that have had congenital disorders, those who've had cognitive disorders. We work with a wide variety of people on things that have more to do with just talking. So yes, there's some speech sound disorders that people may have. That's the articulation, people who can't say their words right. Language disorders, not being able to understand or express yourself the way that you would like to. Cognitive thinking disorders, feeding and swallowing, which is one of my areas of specialty. Voice resonance, fluency, you all may know more colloquially as stuttering. Working on different communication disorders, just being able to communicate, period. Get your wants, your needs, and your thoughts out when you're unable to speak. As well as social aspects of communication, which more of you would recognize as being something we provide services for people with autism. And then, of course, hearing disorders. So, what is communication? I don't think this slide comes as a surprise to anyone, right? Because we know that in order for there to be communication, you have to have a sender and a receiver. Because otherwise, if you don't have both parties, then you're just arguing with yourself. And you probably don't want to do that. You might look a little crazy. But communication is multimodal. Communication has to do with how you listen. And when you listen, what you hear, what you write, what you see. Things that you do with your hands, your body, your facial expressions, all communicate something. I can say a thing to you and not say a word, and I think you'll understand exactly what I mean. But there are cultural codes. Within each cultural group, there are some norms. There are some things that only you understand by being a part of a specific group. There are things that you know inherently because you are who you are. So you can belong to a quilting club. Let's just say. When you belong to a quilting club, you can talk about the different types of stitching that you need to do and the steps, and the people who aren't involved in quilting will look at you like, we got to do the what? Now the what? The 2 times, right? It's like Greek to them because there are linguistic codes, things that we say and do that within a certain culture we understand. There are prosthetic codes. This is the rise and fall of my voice. And if you're not sure what that is, if you had a mother like my mother, she didn't have to say too much before I knew that she meant business. So how you say what you say is important. There's also this mutual comprehension. You know, you can look at a friend and a friend will know just what you mean without words, and you both can just burst out laughing. And for everyone else, it's an inside joke, but it's a mutual understanding that we have about something. And then, of course, those nonverbal communication, as I demonstrated earlier. So let's talk a little bit about the terms. You know, the culture and times that we are living in, we are finding that there are people who are aging and living longer than ever before. My great-grandmother, who lived in Bishopville, was the oldest living citizen in Lee County when she passed away in 1998. She was 109. And she was in her right mind, living on her own, still making me those peanut butter muffins. But we're realizing that although people are living longer, they're not necessarily living healthier. There are some things that are happening with people that are living longer that many of us didn't anticipate or think about. One is they're outliving their siblings, they're outliving their children, they're outliving their spouses. Simply, they're finding that they're losing the people that they would communicate with on a regular basis. Sometimes that can cause depression. That can cause people to say, well, you know, I don't want to be around it. Y'all go on, you know, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. But if you happen to know a loved one that is like your oldest living member of the family or living out in a rural area, stop by and visit and have a conversation with them. Because when they don't have conversations, they start losing some of the abilities. Not that you forget how to talk or you forget the words to say, but your thinking skills begin to diminish because you're not using them. You sometimes, you know, will just become more depressed about not having the person to communicate with. And when you go to visit, it lights up their world. They enjoy watching you come and they want to fix you food. So let's look at some of the terms we need to become more acquainted with. Race. Race believed to be those characteristics that are inherent to a group of people that have like skin, like hair, like whatever. Honestly, there's the human race, but this is the operational definition that many people are using. And so we will go with it. That geographically they determine you come from a particular place, and that because you come from that place, you have characteristics that are inherently alike. We can agree with that. Ethnicity. Now, ethnicity talks about people. It's like a peoplehood that have common customs, characteristics, and language. Now, I told you all my family's from Bishopville, but we've also had some family that were from a little further south in South Carolina. And the surprise to me that I didn't understand very well growing in the city, because some of the family members had moved to New Jersey, and so we knew they were from here, but they talked funny. And I was like, okay, Mama, what's he saying? She said, oh, baby, he just geechee. And I was going, what? He's just geechee. And I had no idea what that meant. I was just like, okay, that's just one of the things Mama say, right? But then when I moved to Charleston, I was like, oh, I get that. There's a whole nother culture right here in those aisles that I didn't even realize, that I thought I knew everything because I was going to the country. But no, this was something else. And those characteristics are unique. to the people that live in that area. The government really just has us to mark on our form whether or not we belong or consider ourselves a part of a Hispanic group or not. But I want you to know ethnicity is a little bit deeper. And let's talk about diversity. Now, diversity is the thing that's like the buzzword. Everybody wants you to think about being more diverse. And certain groups think when you say diverse, that means just having like one other group of people with you. This room right now is very diverse. It's very diverse because we have people with different backgrounds, people from different cultures, people with different careers. We make up a huge pot of diversity. So open your mind to what diversity really means. Those characteristics are a bit broader than we expect. Now, the other term, equity. This is not a term we've always used. And, you know, it's been the buzzword on the rise these last few years, right? Diversity first, then equity. And for some people, you know, what does it really mean? Well, when I saw this picture, I thought, what a great example. Because we've been fighting, we African Americans for years have been fighting for equal, and never really getting equal. And now we understand why. Because equal wasn't really what we wanted. Equal wasn't really what we needed. What we needed was equity. We needed to be able to see over the fence just as well as everyone else, whatever that meant to have. Equal, I know we still say the term, but I challenge people when they say it, is that really what you mean? Do you really want the same? Or do you want what you need to have the same experience? Inclusion. Now, I thought the word inclusion was just simply understood all to yourself. You know, being included. What more do we need to say? But as a special education teacher, I learned that, well, everybody doesn't always, you know, predict it or interpret it in the same way. You know, I was in the schools at the time when they first came up with the notion, we need to treat our exceptional children with a more inclusive model. And what did that mean? Anybody know what they meant? They meant take them from this self-contained special education class and put them in the regular classroom. They didn't really quite figure out the dynamics of that, though. Like, what will that look like, and what is it that we really need to do? Because now you've taken a child from a space they considered to be safe, because I can mess up here and nobody will make fun of me. Everybody in this room is having the same problems that I'm having, so we can work together, and nobody outside needs to know the struggles I have. And then they said, no, they should have the same. And I don't think they actually thought that model through as well as they did. Because now over the years, they're like, well, you know, maybe we should think about how we're teaching those children and whether or not they should be in the exact same room, and what services can we do to help them. I really believe that they were thinking equity when they were saying inclusion. And then some people even called it the push-in model. Push in rather than pull out. Anybody here like being pushed? I just think about the terms that we use when we say those things. The children who were feeling pushed in were not necessarily excelling when they were pushed into the classroom. Some of them even had more problems and then had to be pulled back out. But we want to know that the one thing it should mean is that everybody should be respected. Everybody should be included. And I think the respect is the most important part of the definition, is that not I'm just putting you in here, but when I put you in here, I need to respect you, your gifts, what you bring to the table. I need to understand that I can give you encouragement and you will thrive, you will do better. So let's talk a little bit about culture. So if you all have seen the pollen count outside, you can understand my allergies are kicking in. I took so much allergy medicine so that I could get through this, that my mouth is so dry right now. So I apologize. But culture says that we're a group of people that have commonalities in what we believe, how we behave, what we value, and this includes our implicit and explicit behaviors. So my explicit behaviors, they're the things that you see every day. You can see them. They're out, they're in the open. The implicit things, I may not show you until I know you. I may hold them, but they're actually affecting my thoughts. They're experiences that are affecting how I do, what I do, and why I do it. And you may have no idea. So something that I may do may look strange to you. You know, why is she doing that? Why is she going there? That's because you have no idea what I know about me and my experiences. And so I'm going to challenge us to think about that when you walk into a room. What are you bringing with you that no one else can see? What are you bringing? A certain body of knowledge, a certain exuberance? What are you bringing that is hidden inside that could actually contribute to the other people in the room? So when we as workers, whether it's clinical, educational, occupational, you need to think about the things that people don't know about you when you come into that room. And just like you have things that people don't know about you, they have things that you don't know about them. And sometimes it helps you to think about, you know what, maybe they're having a bad day. This might not be a good time to ask that person for this sort of thing. I will tell you, recognizing and understanding implicit behaviors has made me put the brakes on when I see a person with road rage. Because you never know what kind of day they're having. Yes, they may be rushing to something you don't know, and maybe they are crazy. You know, because you're like, oh, this crazy driver. Maybe they are crazy, but right now is not the time for you to encounter that. Right now is not the time for you to start, ride behind them. You cut me off, I'm going to cut you off. No, let's think about that. Just like you might be having things going on with you that no one else knows, they may be also. And so as educators, as clinicians, as occupational workers, we need to think about the fact that sometimes I might say and do things to you that you don't understand why I'm saying and doing them. And you have thoughts and beliefs from where you've been reared, right? So I've told you I'm a city girl, but I was raised by country parents. So you can best believe we didn't go to the doctor very often because we had a whole lot of home remedies. We have some stuff that I can't even name, and I probably can't say it right. It was like asafoetida something. Did anybody know what I'm talking about? Smell bad, taste bad. I did anything I could do. I was like, I'm not singing anymore. Right? Because I was like, oh no, am I that sick? You got to pull out the bottle. Right? But we have to think about what other people, their experiences, have them believe about illness. Can I get better or not? Or is there some other reason I'm ill? It may not be because I went out of the house just after taking a shower, because my mama sure enough told me, girl, you're going to catch a cold. Go out this house right after you just had a bath. You're going to catch, well, my grandmother used to say, you're going to catch the pneumonia. Right? We have to think about, maybe that's why that person doesn't want to take your suggestion about, oh, just go get some Tylenol. CVS is open here. I've got some. Maybe because they have another remedy. Maybe there's something inherent in them that makes them want to choose another thing to do. So it brings us to these newer terms that people are talking about right now. For many years, we talked about cultural competence, but now we need to broaden our definitions, because there are some things that we need to recognize, we as people need to think about. We want others to think about us in a certain way, and so we have to do that as well. So then let's define cultural sensitivity. This is actually you being aware that other individuals have beliefs that may be different from your own. Just having that awareness, because I promise you there are people who don't. There are people who really are so centric that they think people think like they do and act like they do and are totally surprised when they don't. And it's like, well, I don't know what's wrong with them. I mean, I think about Big Bang Theory, right? And I think about Sheldon. He really, yes, I understand he's supposed to be on the spectrum, but he really has no idea that other people have thoughts and things that are illogical to him, but make sense to them. And then there's cultural humility, which is when you can reflect on your own culture. So you know why you do the things you do. Now, I'm a woman of a certain age, and I will admit that I am stuck in my ways about some things. There's just some things I won't do. And I know I have now lived in the South longer than I lived in the North. Matter of fact, when I try to go to the North, they're like, girl, where you from? And I'm like, really around the corner. They're like, stop lying. Because they really don't believe that I'm from there. And then I have to work on my homogenized speech. So they don't realize it. But I can't buy Duke's mayonnaise. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know if y'all was going to throw something at me.
I just feel sorry for you.
Now, I've eaten food made with Dukes, but I got to have Hellman's. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing in advance for my next statement, which might make you all kick me out of South Carolina. I hate grits. I'm sorry. But I recognize that I bring that in the room when I come to somebody's house for breakfast. Because I know, well, breakfast, lunch, dinner, doesn't matter. I know that if I'm invited, there's probably going to be grits. And I've talked to myself the whole way to their house. And I just take a very small portion. Because I could do a small portion. Oh, but I can't do a second helping. That I can get through that. But I recognize that about me. And I don't want to insult the cook because I'm more than sure that the grits that the cook is making are way better than the grits my mama cooked. I'm sure. Because I blame it all on my mama. That is why the grit, yeah, it's all her fault. But I recognize that I have to reflect on who I am and what I bring to the table when I enter a room. And that helps me to pause, to think about the sensitivity I need to have for the other person. What are they bringing into the room that I don't know about? And then cultural competence is your ability to interact with cultures, recognizing what you bring, and that they have opinions other than yours. When you can do that with ease, then you have become competent. That's your litmus test. Now, there are others who have different definitions of cultural competence. And so I'm going to share this one that I like from Compania Bacote because they touch on the fact that you are actually learning about someone else's culture. And I think that's the key thing. Sometimes we recognize that you are of a different culture, that you have different understandings, but rather than take time to learn about it, we actually just make assumptions about it. And making those assumptions will sometimes cause us to tip into stereotypes, not even being aware that we're doing that. And so I like the fact that this definition includes the fact that you're learning and providing culturally relevant, and here it says intervention, but service. whatever your job is, that the service you're providing is culturally relevant for that person because you actually took the time to get to know a little bit about them and to know a little bit about their culture. And know that this is not something that happens overnight. You can't have the one friend that's Latino and think you know about all Latinos in the world. That doesn't, you just know about that one and their experiences from the Latin country they come from and the practices that they have. But if you're truly interested, you'll learn more on your own. If you think, you know what, I actually live around a lot of people and I'm going to say a thing. I'm going to say a thing. Understand, I'm going to say a thing, but I'm telling you I'm going to say a thing. All Latinos are not Mexican. Okay, I want to say that because I've been in situations and areas where people will just say, those Mexicans. And I'm like, actually, he's from El Salvador. But that's showing that you haven't taken the time to actually learn, to actually figure out who they are and what they are. I like this representation of a continuum because I think we're always learning and we're always evolving. That you may start off being ethnocentric, where you have some terms and words that you may use that are not appropriate, may use some stereotypes, treat everybody like they are all the same person until you start knowing a little bit better and then getting into recognizing and committing to learning that there are some differences in people so that you develop this competence. Now, many of us may only get here, but as long as you're striving to become proficient, I think you're on a good path. It's a process. This cannot happen overnight. This is not something that, you say today, you know what, that was a good presentation. I think I'm going to go out and make myself, competent. It's not going to happen just because you say it, but you have to do it, and you have to do it every day. You have to put it into practice every day. So let's look at what are the comparisons between the humility and the competence. Keep this in mind. The humility is a way of thinking. It's now, you're changing your thought pattern. So I want to make sure when I encounter someone new, when I meet someone new, I recognize I'm bringing something to the table that they don't know about me. And there are plenty of things about them that I don't know, but I want to know. I respect them enough to ask the questions, to show an interest, and not showing the interest with a bias, but I respect you enough because I want to get to know you. And maybe there are some other things we have in common other than just being in this room together. Cultural competence is a way of becoming. Because when you do it enough, it becomes a part of who you are. You can walk into a room and say hello to everyone and not feel like, I don't know if I should go say hi to him because, he might not like me because I heard them people sometimes don't like you or sometimes they're angry or, no. Never let another person change who you are. Only you should change who you are. And it should be your decision to do so. So if you decide, I want to be better, I want to know more people, expand my horizons, go beyond my front and backyard, then do it. But when you do it, know that you're opening yourself up, right? So that people can get to know you. And that's the only way you can get to know them. I like this quote, and it's very long, and so it's going over several slides. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I've highlighted some of the points that I think are really relevant. Talking about these three terms, cultural competence, humility, and providing culturally responsive practice. That piece, the culturally responsive practices, I don't know that everyone recognizes what that is. Regardless of what you do, whether you're an educator or a clinician or you have a different occupation, when you decide you are going to meet someone and you're going to engage with them, then you want to work with them on their terms because you now recognize she doesn't like that thing. Or this is against her religion. This is not something she would do in her religion. So I'm not going to pull out a ham sandwich when I know she doesn't eat pork. But it's a decision I'm making to sacrifice eating my ham sandwich in front of her. And we'll have this conversation because I want the conversation. And when she's gone, I'll eat my ham later. But it's recognizing that and respecting that person enough to say, oh, you know what? She doesn't use foul language. I realize that she never curses. So I think I probably want to tone back the words that I may use when I'm in her presence. All three of these things, those culturally responsive practices, cultural humility, sensitivity, they are a lifelong process. And it should be evident to the person that you're with that you're interested in getting to know them better on a different level. Not that you're trying to be in a relationship with them, but that I care enough about who you are that I want to know a little bit more about you. And maybe we can have lunch, some coffee or tea, and a conversation. And you not think I'm trying to hit on you or date you, or that I'm up to something, that I have some ulterior motives. Maybe I'm trying to get to know you to think about where your head is at because maybe I want that job and I don't want you to get it. So I'm going to find out what you know. There are people who do that. They befriend you with ulterior motives. But this is not that. Knowing that these concepts make you step out of the role that you're in as an expert in something because you are now opening yourself to being vulnerable as a communication partner with this other person. You can't sit there and just berate them with a lot of questions. Who you are, where you from, who your mama, what you make, right? And then you get up from the table and leave. Because then it's like, what just happened to me? If you want a little, you've got to give a little, right? So you need to say, you know what, I love planting. I grow flowers. I'm not that good at it, but I'm going to keep trying. That person may be excellent. They may say, well, have you tried Miracle-Gro? And you're like, oh, now this conversation took a whole new turn, right? Because I didn't know that you knew anything about gardening. But now we've got something else that we can talk about. All of these require you to commit to that level of sensitivity. Meaning, I can't start this process with you and then figure out, oh, okay, you know what? I didn't realize she was in the tea party. I'm done. Right? Because how good is it to be able to have a healthy conversation about something you might disagree about? I want to know, what made you join the tea party? What were your thoughts? What were your understandings? And it's not for me to cut you down about what you think about it. But I can share, you know what? I didn't know that. I didn't know those things. Or I knew those things, but I chose this. I chose another independent party. I chose that because he used to babysit my grandmother's uncle's cousin, and I knew them, and I just figured he was a nice guy. But at least now we're having a conversation about something that we have that's different. I can't just walk away from you because we have a different. And I certainly will not pick and choose the conversation to have with you because of who you are. Then you're not in this process. I'm not going to say, oh, well, I saw her shopping over at Dollar Tree, so she's cheap. Because then we get into a place where we are passing judgment. We have no idea why she's in Dollar Tree. She might be buying lots of toys for kids that she knows they're going to get broke in 1 hour. But this is what we do, right? We pass judgment. And then we make decisions. We're like, you know what? I'm really not going to be with them. I'm not going to be their friend. I'm not going to have these conversations. Let me just say this little piece right here. It's a sidebar, a little nugget for free. When you decide to befriend someone, know that they're making a decision too. And just like you're looking at their behaviors, they're looking at yours as well. So if you're not being genuine, most people can pick up on that. And if you see someone distancing from you, you need to question yourself. Where are you in this process? If you were committed to being culturally sensitive, showing that cultural humility, then where are you in the process? Sometimes you might have to go back and apologize for a few things because you were on your journey and you sidestepped. But I want to tell you, I'm sorry for that. Could you forgive me? Because we shouldn't have let that argument get to that point. We should be able to agree to disagree. Culturally responsive behavior means that you listen and you listen attentively. So you pick up on the things that they're saying and then you hold on to them and reflect back what you hear them saying to make sure you're understanding the conversation correctly. People find it easier to share horrible things about their lives with strangers. I stood in a line that was very long, and I promise you, I learned more about the lady behind me in the line than I ever wanted to know. I know about all her surgeries, her children in jail. Oh wow, those are some experiences. I wasn't going to, say, oh, you got all that on, let me move over here. No. She needed to get that out. And I understand that it's hard to share some of those horrible things with the people that know you. Because the people that know you are already in judgment of you sometimes. They're not giving you the benefit of the doubt. And so when a person is sharing with you, you owe it to them to listen, reflect, and if they're telling you about things you don't understand, go find out later. Google it. Look it up. I never forget about a time when I had a friend sharing with me about her experience she was getting her doctorate in Oklahoma. And she was sharing a lot of stuff with me about the area, and I wasn't fully understanding all that she was sharing with me. And she's an African-American woman as well. But what she didn't know was I had never heard of the massacres in Tulsa. I never heard that. I never knew the story. Okay, maybe I'm just the only one, right, who never heard of it. But I didn't, so I couldn't really relate to everything she was telling me about her experiences there because, the people are still living there. Their ancestors, their children, they're still there. So when horrible things happen and people are still living in those areas, their descendants are still there. And however their ancestors felt about it kind of got passed down. So you still have some tension. And she's not from there, but being an African American in that central area didn't really make a difference. She was still having some experiences. So it wasn't until years later that they start doing the documentaries and everything. And I was like, oh my God. I had no idea about the atrocities that occurred. People just slain, laying dead in the street. Like, really? We were doing that thing? That I was like, I need to find her number. I need to call her up and say, oh, now I get it. It's way too late now. It's been years. But had I known then what I knew now about how to listen, how to reflect, and go and see if you could find out more information, I probably could have helped her with the conversation she was trying to have with me. I was empathetic, but I couldn't compare to what she was talking about. ASHA, who is the American Speech Language Hearing Association, says that as professionals, we should come to the job ready to treat people the way they should be treated in order to be effective in what we do. We shouldn't come with biases. I had a student once who, in our profession, our students do practicums. And so in one of my clinical sites, I had a student practitioner with me. And the patient who had had a stroke that I was working with, and please forgive me if I get this information wrong, I believe he was Episcopal. But in his church, his responsibility was reading the scripture from a separate podium from the pastor. And because of his stroke, he had difficulty reading and then saying his words. So his goal was to be able to read scripture in church one more time. And so we were working on that. And he picked the scripture he wanted to learn, and we practiced. And the words in the Bible are not the easiest words to say when you don't have a problem. So there were some challenges. So now the student is coming, and she's working with me, and I assign her to work with this patient. And she says, oh, no, I can't. I can't. And I was going, what's wrong? Why can't you work with this patient? She says, he's working from the Bible. I don't believe in that crap. I can't do it. And I said, okay, so before you earn your first F in this practicum, let's talk about that a little bit. It doesn't matter what you think or you believe, because you're the clinician. You have the skill that he needs to do what he wants to do. And if reading the Bible is what he wants to do, that's what you're going to work with him. I'm not asking you to convert. I'm not asking you to change your thoughts about God or anything. I'm asking you to help this man pronounce these words and read this scripture so he can do it before the people at church. And it took her a moment because she was upset that I told her she didn't matter. She didn't understand what I meant. And I said, I need you to recognize that in this profession, you are going to work with people who don't look like you, who don't smell like you, right? Who come from varying backgrounds. Your background is important for you because you bring it with you. But you're also in this profession to learn a skill and a trade to help others. Isn't that why you got in this? So here's a man who needs help. If he were lying on the street in a pool of water, would you not help him because you don't want to get wet? And she was like, no. I said, this is the same thing. This is the same thing. Just because you don't believe in the Bible, I'm not asking you to believe in the Bible. I'm asking you to read the words. It's a book. Help him. And as the story will conclude, he was able to go forth and read the scripture for his church one more time, and it meant the world to him to be able to do so. So that brings us to cultural awareness. What does it mean to be aware? Well, there are 4 types of awareness: unconscious, conscious, competence, and conscious and unconscious incompetence. Of course, the first thing is knowing that you are aware of yourself and what you do is what we want you to be able to do to be competent. Our goal here is to be unconscious competent, although some of us may not get there. That's how you're able to work with people and do the things that you do without it looking like you're trying so hard, right? This is you not being aware, but just coming in a room and sitting with people, talking to people, learning about people, and recognizing that they are different. I've just operationally defined each of those areas here. But I want you to consider just a few things for us as professionals. We should be able to show that we have respect for others as we are in our committed journeys moving forward. Know that there are differences among groups. We may not always know what people say when they say and how they say it, right? Because we may not understand their language, but we can ask. Right? What does that mean? I've heard lots of words from other people in other cultures, and they're used in a certain way that the tone you use, I think I know what you're saying, but I want to be clear. I want to be clear, make sure I know. Knowing that those religious differences, what they are, and that you are not being offensive to others, that there are a lot of reasons why people believe the way that they believe, and they have certain attitudes towards help. Some people don't want to ask for help, and they're afraid to ask for help because of how they're raised. They may believe that, you know what, it's the evil spirits that are surrounding me, and I need to get rid of those evil spirits and things will be better. Or they may believe there's an imbalance in my body and I need to take care of that to restore myself into a place where I will be healthy again. So maybe I don't want your help at this point in time. Any questions about any of that? No? So I have some final thoughts for you. Knowing Grisham's maxims, make sure that when you communicate with others that you are relevant, truthful, that what you say has importance and is very clear. Know that there is a value to talk and there are rules, and those rules belong in a culture. So some cultures do not allow you to look a person in the eye when you're having a conversation. Know that, respect that. Don't say, well, I'll look whoever in the eye I want. No, 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 no. If that is their rule, follow their rule, do what you do later. Know that there are some rules about how close you can talk to a person, because I may not want you in my personal space if I have not given you permission to do so. I may want you to stand right where you are, and I'm completely fine with understanding you from there. Know that there are groups that engage in what we think call individualism, where I do what I do and it helps me to move forward, whereas collectively others will work better in a team, and together we will make it there. There are cultures that have high context and low context. The difference there being that I am one person who understands a lot about print. I read a lot. I understand a lot about history. Low context will want to be a person who, I don't need much. I just need you to get right to that point. We don't need a lot of other hoopla to get me there. Knowing that differences between cultures that have high context and low context usually causes arguments because people don't recognize that their needs are different. What I need to understand something and what you need to tell me may be at odds. That also knowing that the amount of which you include in your conversation, there are people who are good storytellers and they will tell you the story from starting at their birth, and you just want them to get right to the point, and that causes some conflict. But knowing that how you engage, how long you engage, the kind of engagement you have with a person is determined by that culture. Maybe small bits of communication with you over time is more valuable to me than trying to get to know all about me in this 1 hour. There are some costs to acculturating to the mainstream, and it may make others think that you're trying to be like that other group. You're spending so much time with them, maybe you want to be like them and not be like us, and those are just all misunderstandings that can be cleared up with a conversation. So, final thought here, while we want equity, sometimes we ask for equality. What we actually get is somebody who gets way too much than they need and somebody who doesn't get enough of what they need. And so my challenge is recognizing that it's hard to work with children who are at risk when you don't understand what their risks are. It's hard to work in an area where you have people that have issues because of low income and you've never had that experience. If you've never had to make the decision whether or not I'm going to buy my medication or whether I'm going to buy my grandchild this birthday gift, you can't relate to someone who's had that experience. Know that there are differences in the way that we view health, because many of us are health practitioners. There's differences in the way that we view getting help. And some people will not accept it because they say, I don't need charity. I don't need anything from people on the outside. But really, you might have the skills or the very knowledge of the thing that they need. So recognize the methods that you use when you approach people that you're trying to help. Recognize how you offer the help. Not so openly that it offends them or makes them think, you think I just need that? but that you see them, you understand them, and you're really trying to be a help to them. I really want to admonish all of you to become advocates. Know that you have the skills and the knowledge to do so just by being the human you are. And just because you want to do better and you want to be better, that should show. Make sure that whatever you do, you're being ethical about it. You know, if you confide in me about something, I should not turn around and tell the other people in my crew, girl, you know what she said. Because you confided in me. And I need to let you know that that was a sacred place. And what you said to me will stay with me. I will not let anyone else in on that information. And finally, we get to what we hope, where there is no wall, there is no barrier, that we all can see the game. And we don't need a hand up, a hand out, but that we can get to a place where we all have what we need to move forward. So these are just my final thoughts. I want you to make sure that in your interactions, as you become more culturally sensitive and showing your cultural humility, that you not judge. Don't judge others. Think first about the things they are bringing that you don't know about. As colleagues, I want us to respect each other in the room. I want you to know that everybody has a job, and everybody's job is important. It may be different, but it's still important. I will tell you that I cannot do my job as a speech language pathologist if the custodian did not sweep my floor and take my trash, because I work with little babies who vomit and puke and pee on the floor. They are so important to me. I could not do my job working with feeding and swallowing if I didn't have a kitchen staff that could actually prepare the foods the way they need to be prepared for my patients. My job is different. Your job is just as important as my job, because all of us have a job that needs to get done in order for it to all work together. And all of us being faculty, staff here at the university, we all have a job. Our jobs are different. Nobody's job is greater than the other, because we all couldn't do this without each other. Thank you.